postmodern soup, you're gonna have to be very aware and challenge everything, challenge every idea that comes along. I mean, you know, one of the things about Admiral, his speech, changing the world, all it takes is one person to make a change, a real change. One of my great joys was I was in South Africa, and I went out to what's called Robben's Island. And it's the place where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. I think he spent like 22 years of his 29 years in prison on Robben's Island. And so I went there, and now all the tour guides are all ex-prisoners. And so I was able to go in and stand in the cell of Nelson Mandela. And it was, 6 feet, 2 meters by 1.5 meters maybe, and a mat. I think that was it. I don't think there was anything else in the cell. It was cement, and he just had a little mat to lay on. And the guy changed the world. Okay? One guy who stood for truth, and the whole world changed around him. All it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. Okay? If you want evil to prevail, then as good people, don't say anything and don't do anything. If you want to stand up against it, then some of you, might actually change the world. One of you. That's all it takes. And so, now, Aberdeen was so excited about what she just heard that she was unable to control herself, or she fell asleep and knocked it off after. So what is it? Oh, by the way, we've arranged. We're running a little bit of show. I've still got a bit more to do. So, and tomorrow morning we only have one session, right? Yes. So they let me go to 1:30 today. So if you can stay awake for another 15 minutes, we'll get through a couple more things. Okay, but here I've said off and on. Be kind, not out to win an intellectual argument. Be kind to people, but be truthful. You can be strong, truthful, and kind at the same time. Here's the third topic: self-discipline. If you haven't figured it out, discipline and disciple, same word. You want to be a discipline of Christ, a disciple of Christ. And Jesus makes it pretty clear too, where he said, if anyone wishes to follow me as a disciple, he's got to deny himself. Set aside, this is from the Amplified Bible, so we get this is the sort of spaghetti translation here. He must deny himself, set aside his selfish interest, take up his cross, expressing a willingness to endure whatever may come, and follow me, believing, conforming, living your life as though God, Jesus existed, and if need be, suffering, perhaps even dying for the faith. So that's what you signed up for, guys. This is discipleship. Amen. Which requires self-imposed discipline. And this is one that's not negotiable. And this is really, really important. Because discipline means that you subjugate your faith. It has to do also with sacrifice. Because what sacrifice is to deny yourself short-term gratification for long-term results. Okay? So it's denying yourself self-gratification, something that would be easy for you to do now, in order that later you will have more or better results. So Jesus' sacrifice was that he denied himself of the short way out. Remember in Gethsemane? If there's a way I can get out of this, I'd like, any chance. But he sacrificed. So part of discipline, self-discipline, is sacrifice. And I don't know how to describe this, just from my personal experience. I guess I kind of learned it, I told you the story of my running and that type of thing. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure how or why, but I would remember getting up in the morning and I didn't want to run to school. I mean, who wants to do that? I'd much rather ride my bike or drive my car or whatever. But I would get up and I would have a decision to make. Do you run to school today or not? And then I was thinking, well, if I don't run to school today, somebody else in this state is running to school, and when we race together, he's going to be stronger than I am. I'm not going to do that. So I would get myself out the door, and I would run to school. And on the days when it was snowy and rainy and cold and nasty, those were the days I had the easiest time of going, because I thought, the other guy's going to sleep in, I'm going to train. So all this, that's what started it for me. But still today, I have to admit, yesterday I went for a run, but I thought, I'm sitting there going, I really don't want to go for a run. Not really, but I always know if I can get myself out the door, then I can do it. But it's getting myself out the door that's where the battle goes on. But once you're out, then you do it, and it's fine. But in terms of imposing discipline on yourself, there is no easy way. But I also say there's no options not to. Well, I tell you, you can, but this is the key to growth, personal growth. If you learn self-discipline, because then it becomes a lot of stuff. They're also tempted in other ways, either money-wise or sexual-wise or whatever it happens to be. When the temptation is there, if you're self-disciplined, you say, I don't care how I feel. How I feel doesn't matter at all. I'm doing the right thing. Okay? That's self-discipline. I'm not led by emotion or feeling. I'm led by what's the right thing to do. Yes.
Yeah, it's just such a good point also in our relationship with God, because we can't always feel like the Holy Spirit comforting us and loving us. Sometimes it's really nice to just be comforted and stuff, but many times we will not feel it. And then when we have self-discipline, it will affect our relationship and how we are obedient to God, whether we feel it or not.
No, absolutely. Well, it has to do everything from you getting up for your quiet time. And by the way, I think you all understand, your DTS situation is kind of what I call a greenhouse effect. This isn't the real world here. It's a good one, and we need it. This is there's a time when you need to be in the greenhouse, right? Because it gives you a chance to grow and all this kind of stuff. But you're not going to be in here forever. You're going to be out in the real world.
Yep.
And out in the real world, it's tough. And you have to be self-disciplined at every level of your life. So, and that's what we'll talk about when we talk about finances. You can't be led by the moment, and spend your money irresponsibly. You have to discipline yourself. You may want something, but you say, no, I want it, the desire, but you look at the facts, the money, and you say, can't do it. No, I'm not going to do it, because that's a bad strategy. So learning to control your emotions, not that you deny your emotions as such, we all have emotions, but learning to control them to the point where you dictate to them, they don't dictate to you. And discipline, imposing discipline on yourself is the way you're going to do it. And the only way to do it is practice it. Start small. Again, don't try to take on some big project. Start with the little things. So that's another thing, making your bed. What's the big deal about making it? Discipline. I don't feel like making my bed. Do it. And it's the right thing to do. You'll feel better. It brings order in out of chaos and blah, blah, blah. Do the things you can do. Start small and be brutal on yourself, okay? Don't cut yourself any slack. You got it, and, you know, not that you're gonna necessarily hurt yourself, that's a little extreme. But don't give yourself excuses for not doing what you know you need to do, okay? That's all I'm saying. And the other part of this, which comes into it, is hard work. Hard work, disciplined work. Now again, if you're conscientious, I am conscientiousness, it's gonna be a little bit easy for you, a little bit easier for you. If you're high in openness, it's gonna be a little bit harder, because you like for things just to float and blah, 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 blah. But if you're gonna go ahead, if you're gonna move ahead, if you're gonna make progress, if you're gonna grow and mature, you have to impose discipline and hard work, and basically you just have to work harder than anybody else. And if you do that, it always pays off. There's always a positive consequence when you put diligence, hard work, sacrifice in on anything you do, and do the best you can at it. That's all, and that's all God, I think, asks of us, is do the best you can with what you have. And don't compare yourself to anybody else, right? Don't do that, that's not good. Within yourself, yes.
The thing I would add is that in order to do your best and be your best, you need to take rest.
Take
Rest.
rest.
And so in order to study at my best and work my hardest in that area, there needs to be other areas of my life where I'm resting.
Yes.
And if I'm working 100% of the time, I'm not going to then be able to work to the best of my ability.
And this is what Jeff was talking about the other day, the difference between striving and calling. So when you're striving, you know, it's like there's this pressure on your back and you're trying to do it all on your own, in your own power, that's striving, and that's where you end up in burnout. Now, calling, when you're called by God to do something, there's a relaxedness about it. You're still intense, you're still focused, but there's a relaxedness that you're comfortable with it. Doesn't mean you don't work hard, but you're not trying to prove something to somebody. You're not trying to, lift yourself higher and make yourself more likable or whatever. So striving is that. Calling, when you're called to God, you're kind of relaxed about it in the sense of, okay, God's at work, I'm at work, and God's will's going to be done at some point as we work together as co-workers. Yes?
Another question, if you need a spiritual part, why are we talking about that this week?
What's that?
What?
If we need that spiritual part, why aren't we talking about that too?
I mentioned earlier, the rest of the 12 weeks, 11 weeks, are geared towards the spiritual dimension, development. This week, I'm not talking about the spiritual so much, I'm talking about the physical side, the practical side, this side. So you're gonna get, hopefully 11 out of the 12 weeks, you'll get the spiritual input. This 1 week is geared towards the more practical side.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.